Welcome to Formula 3000 coverage here on Eurosport. I'm Ben Edwards with Gareth Rees as we get ready for round 2 of the championship coming from Imola. Well, last year, Bruno Junqueira took pole position for this race, but it was won by Nicolas Minassian. This year, we'll find out who becomes the latest winner of this Imola round to the championship. Now, yesterday morning, there was a little bit of rain before things got underway, and we had a welcome from one of the Italian drivers. Says, hi, I'm Andrea Piccini and I'm participating in the Formula 3000 Championship. Stay with us, it should be a fun race this weekend. Well, we're certainly hoping for that this weekend, a very close competitive championship as ever. And a number of the drivers looking to go well today. Justin Wilson, Thomas Enge, Antônio Pizzonia, the reigning British Formula 3 champion as well. The Sparaffico twins, they'll be out to do their best. And Mark Webber will be starting from pole. And talking of pole, the pole position for the Formula 1 Grand Prix this weekend, taken a few moments ago by David Coulthard in the McLaren, ahead of Mika Häkkinen. Ralf Schumacher in an excellent third, ahead of Michael Schumacher fourth. Trulli and Barrichello will start on the third row, then Montoya and Panis will start on row 4. Frentzen and Raikkonen are very impressive, row 5. Villeneuve and Heidfeld will start on row 6. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar only 13th, ahead of Alesi, Berti and Bernoldi. Verstappen and Alonso will start together on the 9th row of the grid. And the final couple of rows seeing Fisichella and Mazzocani and Jenson Button way back in 21st place, just ahead of Tasso Marquez. That's how they'll line up for the San Marino Grand Prix this weekend. Andrea Piccini saying, right, now we're going to go back and look at the highlights of the first race that was held in Brazil. The first time the 3000s run outside Europe. It was a very special race, and for me personally, not such a great race. I hope I could do better here in Imola. So, let's take a look back. We've got Gareth Rees alongside me here to look back. Gareth, we enjoyed this race together, and the start of the race was pretty crucial, wasn't it? It was Jamie Mello on pole position, but it was Riccardo Sparaffico who made that terrible getaway.
Yes, he did, and unfortunately he tried to get it all back in one corner, ended up sticking it in the tyre wall and ended his race after about 200 yards.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. As they went into the first corner, Mello was ahead. Sparaffico was in fourth here. Now, he said afterwards he had a bit of a push, but there was no one near him when he went off.
No, he did actually clip the wing. As he turned into the first left-hander, he clipped the wing of the car in 5th place. Whether that gave him a slow puncture or something and deflated the tyre as he turned into the right hand, I don't know. But he certainly, the actual spin itself, he went off on his own.
He did. Well, Jamie Mello led from Antonio Pizzonia, who made an excellent start, and Rodrigo Sparaffico, the twin brother, ran well in 3rd place as everyone jostled for position. It was a fairly clean opening lap except for that initial spin, and Jamie Mello seemed to be well placed up front. Sparaffico, Riccardo that is, walked away disconsolate after the disappointing start to his season. Damage done. That was someone else hitting him after the car had already spun. As we followed the cars around the remainder of that first lap, suddenly Mello slowed down and was passed by Pizzonia, Sparaffico, and in fact by Thomas Enge just a moment later. Now, the yellows were out at this point. Nobody should have gone past him.
They shouldn't have done. I mean, when we first saw it, we thought that actually Mello jumped on the brakes too soon. But actually, from what I can gather talking to people afterwards, it seems that they had plenty of warning and just didn't slow soon enough, the cars behind, and were wrong to overtake, so they were at fault.
They were. Well, they were still in those positions when the green flags came out again, and it was at this point that Mark Webber went fractionally past David Saelens before they got across the line, and Webber would then, after the race had all finished, would pick up a 25-second penalty for that on the particular restart. We had a spinner, Bas Leinders, at the restart down at the Senna S, but Antonio Pizzonia was doing a great job up front. That was Leinders trying to get going once again. Pizzonia led with Thomas Enge, was up in 2nd place, Rodrigo Sparaffico, then Justin Wilson, who'd managed to get past Jamie Mello at the restart. Meanwhile, Lancieri had gone off, one of the back markers just getting a little bit too wide at turn number 4, and Gabriele Lancieri's race came to an early conclusion. We then saw quite an interesting battle between these two, the two Red Bull team drivers, Antonio Garcia, and in the number 17 car, Patrick Friesacher. It was good wheel-to-wheel stuff, but unfortunately, a little later on the same lap, things went a little bit wrong for them. Just watching them coming down to the end of the straight here, and you'll see that Patrick Friesacher in the number 17 car trying to fend off Antonio Garcia. Now, Friesacher made a little bit of a mistake there, ran a bit wide, and it gave Garcia the chance to get alongside, and then contact was made.
Yeah, you could see what was going to happen there, couldn't you? I'm sure the team manager wasn't very happy after that.
No, that's right. And in fact, interestingly, I gather that afterwards, although Friesacher was quick out of his car to go and have a word with Garcia, afterwards, when he looked at it, he sort of felt, well, he was pretty much to blame because he had made the mistake on the previous corner.
Yeah, I think he did make the mistake. It's not a place you overtake, but then again, he was going so much slower than his teammates, so he's got to take probably 60-40 the blame, I would say. So Friesacher and Garcia having words afterwards. Seems to have settled down now, and they've got it all sorted out. In fact, Friesacher has gone very well in qualifying for this second round. He will start in second place today. Now, back to the Brazilian race, and Antônio Pizzonia was very impressive. His first ever Formula 3000 race, and there he was, pulling away from Tomáš Enge, with Sbarafico next up. But Justin Wilson in the number 10 car had made that great restart, got himself past Jamie Mello, and as it would turn out, that proved to be the move of the race in many ways, because the three ahead of him were about to pick up penalties. They had to come into the pits for passing Mello earlier on under that safety car period. Tomáš Enge into the pits for his stop-and-go penalty, and the other two coming in as well, Pizzonia and Sbarafico. So, of course, what that meant was that Justin Wilson was now in front and looking for his first victory in Formula 3000. And Gareth, you have to say, once Justin got in front, he didn't put a wheel wrong, did he? No, he did a brilliant job. I mean, we had the times in front of us, and he was putting away, it seemed, about a tenth a lap fairly consistently. He had it very much in control.
Now, Mark Webber moved his way up. He hadn't qualified brilliantly, but gradually closed up on the leaders and made this move to get past Jamie Mello. So it looked as though Mark Webber had earned himself second position, and that's certainly how it looked to the end of the race. Pantano, meanwhile, had had a coming together with Piccini, the man who introduced the programme today. This was the coming together, Piccini in the black car, Pantano in the yellow car, and that was onto the last lap. So, of course, that cost them a chance of better finishing positions. They were battling for ninth, so even so, neither of them would have scored points. So it was that Justin Wilson came through to take his first ever victory in the Formula 3000, and then so nearly put it in the pit wall. He was very lucky to get away with that, and we spoke to Justin afterwards about what had happened.
I'd like to say that I was just showing off, but it was a combination of things. Having just won the race, I wasn't particularly thinking about driving the car, and I looked up and saw the yellow flags for the first corner, and I was a bit eager on the brake pedal and spun the car, so it was a bit embarrassing, but unfortunately I managed to keep out the pit wall and bring it back for the guys to take apart a bit later on to take it back home.
Well, the big story of the race, of course, were those penalties being applied to the drivers that overtook Jamie Mello under yellow. We'll just take another look at that there. They all piled straight past Mello, and we had some questions about that on the internet, and Tomáš Enge explained.
Hello, Aleš. I will explain you the situation in Brazil. There was a problem, there was an accident in first corner after the start, and the safety car come on the track. And because of the first car slowed down quite a lot, we thought he's got a problem. So we overtake him under yellow flags before the safety car come on the circuit, and this is prohibited. So we get a stop and go penalty, 10 seconds. Me and the other two drivers, they overtake him as well. And the race was over afterwards because I finished on the 12th place, and at that point nobody can do anything with it.
So the race classification apparently after that saw Mark Webber finish second, but as I mentioned, he would later pick up a 25-second penalty that dropped him down to 7th and out of the points. So that was a disappointment for the Australian. So Jamie Mello was given second. Sébastien Bourdais, therefore, was given third place at the end of it. Lots of incidents and perhaps a few drivers learning to do things slightly differently next time. Stay with us, because after the break we'll have the latest information from the paddock and highlights of qualifying. So Andrea Piccini asking us to stay with us. We will be right back. We'll look back at yesterday's qualifying sessions and build up towards today's second round of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship. Welcome back to Formula 3000 coverage here on Eurosport, and this weekend the news that Lola have renewed the contract to supply the chassis for the Formula 3000 series for the next 3 years, and that news just coming through this week. We heard more from Robert Smith.
Yeah, we'll be designing a brand new chassis, which is going to be a one-piece chassis, so it'll be stiffer and lighter, and work on the car to make it easier to maintain and safer, and incorporate all the bits the mechanics want.
That new chassis will come into effect next year, and the engine will remain the same. It will continue to be the Zytek V8 engine.
Well, we're going to continue in the same vein as we have been for the past 6 seasons. We've got the contract for another 3 years, and it's very good for Zytek because recently we did 1 million miles with this engine. That was at Interlagos in qualifying, so we hope to provide the same service as we've been doing for the past 6 years.
The tyre contract remains with Avon as well, so they will supply the slick and wet tyres for the series for the next 3 years.
Yeah, well, obviously the contract is being awarded for another 3 years, which obviously we're very happy to Avon about that, and very proud that, you know, it's been given to us again. And obviously we will look forward to the next 3 years.
Interestingly, it's remaining with slick tyres for dry conditions. They haven't gone to a groove tyre, as Formula One have. We got some team reaction as well.
First of all, it's very good that we've got the same manufacturers supporting the Formula again. You can't beat experience, really, and these three have been with the Formula, Avon in particular, ever since it started.
So the plan remains much the same. It will be a new chassis, of course, and they're talking of some changes, particularly to the gearbox for next year's car. Now let's take a look back to yesterday's qualifying session. It was held in dry conditions. They'd had some wet in the morning at Imola, but it was dry for qualifying. And we did see a number of cars just getting it a little bit wrong, and the gravel traps were used quite extensively. Pizzonia had a little bit of an off. We saw a number of other cars as well getting themselves into shades of trouble. Derek Hill there, the American. But most of them got away with it. Justin Keen here with the new colours on the car of Emin Flex. And one of the ones who didn't get away with it, I'm afraid, quite so well, was the Frenchman, Sébastien Bourdais. Take a look at this, getting it over the curb, sliding down the outside, and then getting the whole right-hand side of the car ripped off. We spoke to him afterwards. Simply, I made a mistake, he says. We decided to try and run our 2 new sets of tyres in the second qualifying session, and I perhaps pushed a little bit too hard on the old tyres. It went off in the left-hander, and there's just no way you can stop there. It's perhaps the only place where you can't afford to make a mistake. I got on the rumble strip, and then I was on the grass, and that was it. Contact immediately. Well, he has, in fact, the team have had to build up a new chassis for today's race. Meanwhile, it was a great day for Mark Webber, who set the fastest time in both qualifying sessions, and will start from pole. Now let's go run through the top 6 in reverse order. Justin Wilson has qualified 6th fastest, the man who took that first victory in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, and now trying to build on what is a championship lead, of course, having taken the 10 points for the win on that occasion.
Slightly difficult. Started off very well, but then as the session went on, we couldn't really find any more time, and it's just very difficult with all the yellow flags. I think there's a yellow flag on at least every lap, but same for everyone. We're just going to try harder, and hopefully the race will be better.
So 1 place ahead of him in 5th place will be the Italian Giorgio Pantano, making his debut in Formula 3000 this year. The reigning German Formula 3 champion was pretty happy. He says, I finished 5th fastest, not too bad, not as good as perhaps I'd hoped. I got my best time at the end of the session, but there was a great deal of traffic and it was difficult to get some clear space. And then I made a mistake at the end. I went off the track just when I thought I was on a particularly good lap. And in fact, this was a common story amongst many of the drivers yesterday. Traffic, all the 26 cars out there at the same time, making life a little difficult. 4th fastest yesterday. Good effort from the Czech driver Tomáš Enge, who put this time in towards the end of second qualifying when most other people didn't seem to be improving.
The first session for us was quite difficult because, especially in the beginning, for everybody, the track was very slippery, and the times were going quicker and quicker. And then we expect to be more quicker in the second session, but we were quicker just a little bit. But I did good time, 4th position, and I'm very happy for that. I'm looking forward to step on the podium after the race.
Third fastest yesterday, Britain's Darren Manning, hoping to make up for disappointing results in Brazil 2 weeks ago, and was on the pace throughout both qualifying sessions yesterday. Really very, very close indeed to the top times, and ended up just 0.02 of a second off second position on the grid.
Third position in is better than Brazil, where we ended up 14th, but unfortunately getting quite a lot of traffic. I think there was a lap time in there good enough to put me pole position. I think we're joint fastest in that second session, so but it made for a good race though.
A surprise second fastest, the Austrian driver Patrick Friesacher, who's also stepped straight up out of Formula 3 into Formula 3000 this year with the Red Bull team run by Helmut Marko. And Helmut Marko commenting that he's very impressed with this young man, a lot of good technical feedback, and he really pursued the right path in terms of tuning the car through qualifying, which also impressed the team boss. So second fastest, he'll be starting on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, I feel fantastic after this qualifying. Could not be better. But tomorrow is going to be hard because Mark Webber and Darren Manning, they have a lot of experience, but I'm going to try to do my best, and then we're gonna see what's happened.
But taking pole position, and he really dominated qualifying in both sessions. The Australian Mark Webber driving for the Supernova Racing team, and he's driving with painful ribs at the moment as well, which just adds to what he achieved. He cracked his ribs test driving for the Benetton Renault team. He had to use Giancarlo Fisichella's seat, and that actually ended up cracking his rib, so he's having some pain-killing injections, and it just shows you that he put in a great performance yesterday to take pole position. It is his first pole, but of course he has won Formula 3000 race before. That was at Silverstone last year. We spoke to him about his qualifying.
The car was great when we first rolled out in the first session, and we were immediately right there where the pace should have been. So good tactics in both sessions with the tyres and things, and it was quite messy at the end of the second session with yellow flags and difficult to improve your time. But we did the best with what we had, and the team did a great job.
Well, it wasn't all incident-free for Mark. He was pushing hard, and a couple of little mistakes on the way. We saw a number of people hitting the curbs. You have to use the curbs to put in a fast lap here at Imola. Mark just hitting them a little hard. That was during the first qualifying session, but he recovered no problem at all. Didn't even stall the engine, so he was straight back on. Once again, you can just take a look. The car was slightly sideways already as he hit that inside curb up at the Variante Alta. He got it back together, pointing the right way, and rejoined. Now, in the second qualifying, he spun it on the exit of Acqua Minerale as well. Looked for a little while as though he wasn't going to be able to get it going, but fortunately, he was able to restart. In fact, no one went on to better the time he'd already achieved at that point. But Mark just showed that even the best sometimes make mistakes.
I was a little disappointed with myself that I made a mistake there, but you know, you have to push in qualifying, and after a few more corners, then I got the feeling back to the car, and yeah, it was a big attack. I had to go.
So starts from pole position, absolutely crucial here at Imola. There's not usually a great deal of overtaking if track conditions stay consistent, and he knows that he has to make the most of that pole, get away cleanly at the standing start for the start of the race itself. We spoke to him about his tactics for the first lap of the race, which will be crucial here.
To lead into the first corner, that's the first plan, and after that we'll see what's happening. The races are shorter this year, which I like the longer ones because they're just a bit closer maybe to Formula 1, but these are okay, and hopefully we can make the most of pole position. It's not a good idea to be fourth into the first corner because I won't be happy.
So he's looking at a good getaway. He was pushed at the end of the qualifying yesterday. Looked like he'd simply run out of fuel to end the session. And this was how they set their times then from qualifying. This is how they will start today. Webber and Friesacher, Manning and Enge, Pantano and Justin Wilson sixth. Then behind them is Pizzonia, Rodrigo Sparafico, then Sébastien Bourdais and Jamie Mello, both of whom went off at some point during qualifying and therefore perhaps could have been faster than 9th and 10th positions. Could well be worth keeping an eye on the French and Brazilian drivers there, 9th and 10th on the grid. Behind them, Ricardo Sparafico, Mario Haberfeld, David Saelens, who went off to the gravel, Antonio Garcia, Andrea Piccini, who struggled with traffic. Behind him, Golan, Maslov, Filiberti, Ananda Mikola, and Calzagni, who is the Italian who's come in for this one race at KJR Monaco Motorsport. taking over the ride that Jan Goody had at Brazil. Behind them, see Bas Leinders a long way down there in 21st, ahead of Verano, Derek Hill, Justin Keen, then Lancieri and Camatius rounding out this 26-car grid that will be getting ready for the 31 laps of the race that are coming up.
Restate con noi su Eurosport, torneremo tra pochissimi minuti con la diretta della gara
And Andrea Piccini saying, stay with us, because after the break, we'll be back with the race live, and we will. So here on Eurosport, the Formula 3000 race from Imola coming up in just a few moments. Stay with us, it should be fun. Welcome back to our coverage from Imola of round 2 of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship. I'm Ben Edwards with Gareth Rees, and we're getting ready for the start of the race in just a little while, hopefully in pretty good conditions. We had a bit of rain this morning, but things looking drier as the Formula 1 cars were out for their qualifying session. And in fact, let's just take another look through the grid for the Formula 1 Grand Prix taking place this weekend. David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen will start on the front row. Good effort there, Gareth, from Ralf Schumacher once again.
Very good lap. His last lap was a fantastic lap. He put together 3 brilliant sections and went ahead of his brother.
Yeah, so Michael Schumacher starting in 4th place in front of the Tifosi. Then Trulli and Barrichello will start on the 3rd row of the grid. Take a look at the next few rows, and a good effort once again from Kimi Räikkönen.
Very quick, very quick. I mean, Haberfeld will be disappointed to be so much. He's only 2 places behind, but he's got so much more experience than Räikkönen, so he'll be very disappointed. As will Montoya be disappointed to be so far behind Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, Montoya didn't quite get his last run correct, so he'll be starting in 7th place. Villeneuve's been out-qualified by Olivier Panis. Good effort that from Olivier Panis in the BAR Honda. Eddie Irvine couldn't do any better than 13th, but backed up by teammate Luciano Berti there. And the Arrows haven't done badly this time.
Bernoldi's surprised actually there, because he's qualified Verstappen, which is interesting.
Fernando Alonso out of Formula 3000 last year, of course, and he's got the European Minardi up into 18th place. And we look down the last few, and I have to say, disappointment once again for the Benetton Renault team.
It's appalling, isn't it? I mean, for Button to be behind Mazzacani something is badly wrong.
Yes, that's right. The team really struggling at the moment with that new engine, not providing the sort of power that they would have expected as yet, but I'm sure it will do soon. So back to our live pictures here from Imola as the Formula 3000 cars are getting ready to start this race, and let's take another look at the grid there. It will be Mark Webber starting from pole with Patrick Friesacher, the rookie out of Formula 3, Darren Manning, Thomas Enge. Those both got plenty of experience. Pantano hasn't got so much experience in 3000, but there's Justin Wilson who has. Pizzonia and Sparafico, Sébastien Bourdais and Jamie Mello. Then we work our way through the next part of the grid. Ricardo Sparafico, who's on the front row of the grid in Brazil. Now look for some fireworks from him. I can imagine he might try quite hard from down there. Also David Saelens starting 13th, capable of much, much better than that. And he was disappointed after qualifying, said sorry to the team. He messed up, put it in the gravel, got messed up in traffic before that. So I think we might see a few movements from that mid part of the grid. People like Saelens, Sparafico, maybe even Andrea Piccini, who can be quite aggressive at times. So that mid part of the grid, Gareth, could well be the place to watch.
Yeah, that's where the fireworks usually are, regardless of who's there, because it's so bunched up. But the problem with this circuit is, like you said before, it is a hard place to overtake. Although it has lots of chicanes, which in theory should lend themselves to overtaking, they're all sort of medium speed and not wide on entry to aid overtaking. So it can often be a difficult place.
Now, we were talking a little bit in qualifying about how you use the curbs to get a quick lap here, but what about in the race? Can you afford to hit the curbs that hard in the race?
I think you still have to use the curbs to a point. I mean, you've got to be careful of doing what Mark Webber did. We saw him clank the curbs just a little bit too hard. And the difference between hitting it that hard and spinning off and actually hitting them hard enough to be quick is minimal. And in a race, for you to be consistently hitting it just at the right point and not overdoing and not underdoing it is very difficult. And I think we'll see a few mistakes this afternoon as the race wears on, as people get tired.
Well, that's certainly something to watch out for. In the Drivers' Championship, of course, it's purely as the results were from Brazil, the first round, which sees a Briton in front, Justin Wilson. We saw pictures of him just a moment ago on the grid there. So a Brit on top, which is great news. Jamie Mello, the Brazilian, second. Sébastien Bourdais, the Frenchman, third. Belgian David Saelens in fourth. And a Swiss driver, which is unusual, Joel Camatius in fifth place. He was a surprise performer in that first race. And sixth, Fabrizio Golin, the Italian. So certainly got a very international mix of drivers up at the top end of the grid. You're looking at Rodrigo Sparafico, one of the twin brothers that are competing in Formula 3000 this year. The Brazilian twin brothers. His brother Ricardo further back on the grid. He's down in 11th place. They run with different teams, of course. Rodrigo running with an Italian team, Poloni Motorsport, and Riccardo running with the British team. And so we'll have to see what he can do with Petrobras junior team, of course. Riccardo, we'll have to see what he can do from 11th place on the grid. The grid now being cleared. Good view of Mark Webber starting there, right-hand side of the picture as you're looking at it, with Patrick Friesacher. A new name to us all, really. Out of German F3, won a couple of races last year in that series. Before that, had raced in the French Formula 3 Championship in the Class B of the series. Nonetheless, he's impressed many people so far this weekend. Didn't manage to do that in Brazil after the incident with his teammate, but let's see what he can achieve here today. The nerves will be jangling a bit, I'm sure, for Patrick. They've got the warm-up lap, first of all, to deal with, and he can do a little bit of a practice start there, and he gets away cleanly. I wonder if it'll be as clean when he tries to get away at the actual start. I think everyone's got away cleanly. There was a yellow flag just being shown briefly towards the back of the grid, but no, they're all safely away. And an opportunity to have a look at track conditions here, Gareth. It looked a little bit damp when the Formula 1 cars were out, especially initially in qualifying, but I have to say, things are looking good now.
Yeah, it's nice bright sunshine, a nice ambient temperature, so I think the track should be pretty much dry. The only problem is the rubber rubbish from the F1 tyres, because with the treaded tyre, it does tend to lose more rubber than a stick tyre does, so offline, although you can't see it here clearly watching on camera, offline on the track there's actually quite a bit of rubber.
Yeah, so if you run a little wide through one of those chicanes, you're in big trouble. We saw a couple of people doing that yesterday in qualifying. Out of Tosa, climbing up the hill. Here at this track, Gareth, there's quite a few sections, aren't there, where you're accelerating second gear and then just flat out up through the gears for quite a long stretch at a time.
Yeah, it's not a particularly satisfying track from a driver's point of view. This corner's nice. This is always quite a good fun corner, and Acqua Minerale is quite good, this corner here. Other than that, it's not a particularly satisfying track when you have to animal the car over the curbs in places, which is not nice for most drivers. It is pretty much point and squirt a lot. The old layout was certainly slightly more satisfying. The car ran very little downforce and so moved around a bit more. As it's a bit sort of clinical now for my liking, and I never really enjoyed it after it was changed after Senna's accident.
Well, it's the same for everybody. They're all going to have to cope with it and deal with it, but as you say, perhaps not the ultimate driver's challenge, this track. Maybe a technical challenge in terms of getting the car set up just right for the conditions and for the day. And of course, Formula 3000s don't get a lot of running on track, do they, Gareth? I mean, they had 2 qualifying sessions yesterday, but they didn't get any free practice before that, and then here they are out for the race itself.
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind that obviously is to keep the costs down, which is good to a point. It does play into the hands of those who've been there before. So someone like Webber, for example, it's his second year in 3000. It underlines what a good job Friesacher has done to be on the front row in his first year at the circuit.
Yes, a little bit of practice start going on here to everybody getting some tyres up to temperature. Pizzonia waving the back end of the car around there in his enthusiasm to build up some heat into the rear tyres. And that's all well and good. It'll help them get off the line, but of course you then end up perhaps with slightly cool front tyres and nice warm sticky rear tyres, which can make life fun and braking for the first chicane. Now they're just winding their way through this final chicane that brings them onto the grid. And Mark Webber leads them into position. 26 cars, it's a colourful sight, the grid for the 2001 Formula 3000 International Championship. And we're getting ready for this race to get underway in just a few moments' time. Everybody just picking their way safely through that chicane. And let's hope that we get a good, clean first lap in here today. 31 laps of the Imola circuit already, just about. The last few cars moving into position as this second round of the Formula 3000 Championship is all set to get underway in pretty much ideal conditions in northern Italy, supporting the San Marino Grand Prix. We've seen the qualifying for the Grand Prix itself. David Coulthard taking an excellent pole position. Now, what about Australian Mark Webber, who will be starting from pole position? And what about British driver Justin Wilson, starting 6th today, is the championship leader. Can he do something special and get onto the podium and maintain his championship lead? We're all set for the start of this race. The engine revs begin to build as we wait for the lights to come on. Wait for the red lights, and then away we go, and Mark Webber gets off the line very cleanly. Friesacher doesn't make such a good start. Oh, and pushed onto the grass. Darren Manning squeezed onto the grass. Good start from Thomas Enge, who's come up into second place.
Yeah, Darren Manning got squeezed under the grass there, kept it all together very well indeed. He's up to third or second?
Yeah, he's back into second place. I think he got past Thomas Enge as they all fight their way through Tamburello chicane, and off at the sign, that's Sébastien Bourdais, I believe. Sébastien Bourdais had that accident yesterday. What a disappointment for his team. They've been up all night building this car onto a fresh monocoque, and his mechanics, well, they won't believe that. All that work for nothing. He's out on the first lap. Great start from Mark Webber, chased by Darren Manning. These two who raced over the win at Silverstone last year in the wet, now they're going to be doing it in the dry here at Imola.
And Justin Wilson's sixth, I think.
So Justin Wilson got away pretty much in grid position, and we'll wait to see whether he can make any progress from there. He was right behind Friesacher. Friesacher was the main loser, wasn't he, Gareth?
Yeah, he was. It was dropped to what, fourth?
Yeah, I think
fifth
place, in fact, and Justin Wilson right behind him in sixth place, so the front row man, he didn't get away well.
Nerves got the better of him, I think. But I'd like to see the start again. Was it just me or the lights?
I didn't see the lights at all, so whether they then got another signal from the start, I'm not sure. Whether they were given another signal or whether we didn't get the right signal. Oops. Somebody's across the grass, and
back on again.
Ananda Mikkola, I think that was, towards the tail of the field, as the leaders coming into Rivatsa, and yes, that is Ananda Mikkola, and you can see the damage done to his car as well. Very bent-looking motor car. The right-hand wheels very deranged, and that's the end of the day for the Indonesian driver.
Yeah, he's come onto the circuit, lost it, gone back off again, and clouded the barrier on the inside. I think we'll
take another look at it here. Yeah, he's that's where he lost it. The car was looking all right at this point, but not for much longer. As across the grass he went. So, end of day for Ananda Mikkola. Another view of it here as it came across. There's the impact, there's the damage done to the right-hand side of the car. End of day for him. His teammate still in the race, Giorgio Pantano. Webber is our race leader then. Second place is Britain's Darren Manning. Third place, the Czech Thomas Enge. Antonio Pizzonia, excellent fourth place for him. He started in seventh on the grid, and that's all Justin Wilson, getting very wide there indeed. Managed to save it, but he's got Rodrigo Sparafico right behind him, so he's got to be careful not to lose a position here. And as I say, great start for Pizzonia there, Gareth. That's impressive, up from seventh into fourth place.
Yeah, I think he took advantage of... they seem to bunch up an awful lot down to the first corner, so whether someone got away very badly, perhaps Friesacher got away very badly and sort of held the whole pack up, and Pizzonia took his chance.
Well, it was a good start once again for Pizzonia. He did well at the start in Brazil, and he seems to have the technique straight away for getting these Formula 3000s off the line. Look at Darren Manning. He's not allowing Mark Webber to get away, is he? Darren Manning right there with him.
Yeah, now that's the best thing to do, is keep the pressure right on early. Don't let Mark settle down.
Friesacher got very sideways out of the Variante Basso there. You could see that blue car got well out of shape, but he held it together. The young man who started on the front row, but made a botch of the start, and now chasing after Antonio Pizzonia. There he is, in the Red Bull car, only 20 years old. Same sort of age, though, as Pizzonia, who's right ahead of him. Both of them up and out of Formula 3 and trying to impress in front of the Grand Prix teams. Webber and Darren Manning come through. Thomas Enge comes through. Then Pizzonia, Friesacher, Wilson. Then it's Sparafico. And then the rest coming through. The number 19 car next up, Fabrizio Golan, who had a good sixth place finish in Brazil. You can see everybody sliding their way through that chicane. And it's still Mark Webber. A little bit of movement through Tamburello.
Pushing out. You can see the car move around quite a bit.
Darren Manning with the fastest lap on that second lap, so he definitely closed the gap just a touch. And as we heard from him after qualifying, he felt that he had a car capable of pole position yesterday, but never quite got the clear lap he wanted. Into Tosa corner now. Let's see whether he can close up a little bit more. But now, Gareth, this is the problem, isn't it? Trying to get that draft and pick up.
I was going to say, it's one thing to have a car that's good enough for pole, but it's another thing to actually get past into the lead. Because Webber's car is obviously working very well, as he said beforehand. So I think obviously Darren's got in mind Silverstone's race last year and wants revenge.
He wants revenge, yes. The Webber passed him, of course, for the lead on that occasion, didn't he? But the conditions were somewhat different. And wet rain or wet races often allow you that little opportunity, perhaps, to overtake on find a bit more grip somewhere on a corner that you can't find in the dry. Yellow flag still being waved. I guess that's because of the car of Ananda Mikkola still at the side of the road up there. They'll probably withdraw the yellow flags quite soon. Manning closing up under braking, just locking the left front. Will that have hurt him much?
A little bit. I mean, not too much. It's actually easily done now. I mean, you're coming from a very high speed downhill, so it's even harder to break the car down. It's a second gear corner, so it is quite common to lock up there. Don't do it too much if you can help it, especially at this early stage.
That's right. Look after the tyres. Although the cars not running quite as heavy at the start of races now, Gareth, as when you were doing them, because they have shortened the races.
That's right. I think that's a bad thing. Personally, I think, you know, I think I said this last race, as a feeder formula to F1, there's a replay at the start, so the lights aren't there, are they?
No, but look at Friesacher. He didn't get away very well, did he? Watch Pizzonia coming up from the 4th row of the grid. Let's see, that was Manning on the grass. Pizzonia in the green and yellow. Now, Pantano, I don't know what happened to Pantano, because he's disappeared a bit. Pantano, he went right on the grass here. Right, so that's where we lost Giorgio Pantano, and Pantano is, let me just take a look at the time he's scoring, 11th, yeah, so a long way down. He lost a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Now, watching Thomas Enge, 3rd place, trying to close up a touch. He's got the fastest lap on the previous lap. Had a bit of clear space, so not running in the slipstream quite as Darren Manning, and that allows the wings, the aerodynamics of the car to work effectively. So far, so good for Mark Webber. Did exactly what he said he wanted to do. Got in front at the first corner and has stayed there so far under the pressure, still being exerted by Darren Manning. Pops it over the curb. Watched not to bump it over there too heavily. Pizzonia, Friesacher and Justin Wilson. Wilson seems to have got himself back on track, doesn't he, Gareth, after that little bit of a slippery moment?
Yeah, he's settled down into a rhythm as well. He's looking quite comfortable there.
So top 6 coming through, and then we look further on down the order. Sparaffico next up there in 7th. Mark Webber comes around to complete another lap as he continues to lead this second round of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship. 2nd place at the moment for Britain's Darren Manning. Thomas Enge is in 3rd place, and then there's a bit of a gap behind those 3 as the rest of the field comes through. And we'll wait to see whether we can see any more progress from some of those midfield runners. Here we are back with the leader. Fastest lap again for 3rd place man Thomas Enge, but only by a few fractions of a second. Pizzonia 4th, there he is, ahead of Patrick Friesacher, and then Justin Wilson. And it's Rodrigo Sparaffico, Fabrizio Golan next up, and then Jamie Mello, who had a good result in Brazil after having the pole position. Pizzonia seemed to lose a bit of time there, didn't he?
He did. He's had trouble getting the pad out of the corner, and he's getting pressure from Friesacher.
Friesacher in the Red Bull car.
We can see it.
Yeah, well, we hope we'll get another view of that in a second. We seem to be concentrating on the rest of the field coming through, but there was no doubt that Friesacher was trying to line Pizzonia up for a move, and we'll see whether he managed to get that. Here come the top 2. Webber versus Darren Manning.
Whoops. Darren hit the curves very hard then.
Yeah, he did.
That's what I was saying beforehand. We're very careful not to hit them too hard.
It doesn't look to me as though Friesacher didn't take advantage of that little loss of pace from Pizzonia, did he?
Don't know why. Maybe got the door rudely shut in his face, but we won't know now, unfortunately, thanks to the director.
Yes, we didn't get a good view of that, sadly. Look at Justin Wilson. He's right up behind Friesacher once again. And the Brit who leads the championship. Good battle going on down there as well. David Saelens moving past Giorgio Pantano. Was he moving past or just defending? In fact, they're in that group together, those, and I think Saelens has moved up a couple of places, so that's good progress for the Belgian. And remember, he started quite a long way down. He started in 13th position after a poor qualifying. He is now into 10th place, so good effort that from David Saelens. And Pantano actually, I think, just maybe battling with Andrea Piccini as well at this point. Yes, that's the battle between those two, Piccini and Pantano. That's the two going through the shot. Then Haberfeld is part of that group. Haberfeld of the car, the same colours as our race leader, Mark Webber. That's the second Supernova entry. So here you see Piccini, Pantano, Haberfeld, and then Riccardo Sparaffico. All potential front runners, and yet they're all finding themselves battling over 11th place in this race currently.
Apparently Supernova battling with Durango for ownership of the Benetton Junior name, I understand.
That's right, bit of controversy between the two of them. Benetton, or the Benetton Renault team has a tie-in with Supernova on a technical front, but Durango has some support from the Benetton family. They are quite close to the Benetton family in terms of pure support in terms of sponsorship, so it ends up with two different teams running Benetton colours on their cars, and there's been a little bit of a falling out, I believe, between the two teams over that issue, but hopefully it will get sorted soon. So Andrea Piccini continues to lead this particular little group for 11th place, but it is the Australian Mark Webber who leads the race outright. Pantano in that yellow and white car. He's the Italian who won the German Formula 3 Championship last year after a very successful career in karting. And he was the one that ran wide at the first corner and lost a great deal of time. And he could have been in 4th or 5th place right now if he hadn't just pushed that little too hard. And that's just, I guess, Gareth, inexperience a bit.
Yeah, I think so. Just looking at, Piccini holding up the rest of the pack here. He's letting his teammate get away from the rest. But clearly Pantano's quicker.
Yeah, but can he find a way past?
That's the problem with the circuit, you see. It is very hard to overtake.
Which is probably the best place nowadays for overtaking here?
Probably into that first chicane there is if you get a good toe out of the last corner, a good run at the last corner and toe down the pit straight. But even then, because it's a reasonably quick entry, it's a third gear entry, so you don't knock up a lot of speed. And that's what you need when you're sort of coming up, someone's inside to overtake them. You need to sort of, that's a big crash.
Big shunt indeed, a very big shunt. That's one of the Prost Junior entries. I think it's Verano, yes it is. So Verano's had a very big accident. Gabriele Verano, who raced in the Italian 3000 series last year. Well, there's a classic over the curb, onto the grass, and then straight across to the other side.
Yeah, he just, as he ran slightly wide on the exit curbing, just snapped sideways and then shot across, and once that happens, you're a passenger, really.
And bits of car all over the place down there. It's wiped the nose cone off. The monocoque itself, around the driver, of course, is his survival cell, and that's stood up very well. Still in the car at the moment, moving around, and just beginning to get out, it looks like now. Now, I wonder if this will, I would think, bring out the safety car,
yeah,
because there's going to be quite a lot of clearing up to do.
Yeah, a lot of debris on the track, and that's the danger of carbon fibre shards, as they can get into the tyres and cause punctures, so there you go.
There we are, safety car comes out, and for the second race in succession for this year's championship, we have a safety car period. Now, Mark Webber can take a little bit of a breather. He's been driving well, controlling the pace of this race ahead of Darren Manning and Thomas Enge. They were fairly close anyway. It won't make a huge difference in terms of stacking them up, but it will give some of the midfield runners perhaps an opportunity to get on terms with the leaders by bunching them all up. And I would imagine it's going to take a lap or two to clear up the mess down here.
He's still in the car, actually, isn't he? But I'm sure he's okay, but he's just a bit shaken up and
yeah,
just get his breath back, I think.
The monocoques have had a little bit of extra carbon fibre put into them this year to assist the protection of that survival cell, particularly the sideways protection, making the cars a little heavier this season. To a certain extent, it's put the heavier drive. Oh, and there's been an accident right behind.
I was just going to say, if they're not careful, they're going to have an accident because they were arriving too quick. You can see them all avoiding each other initially.
Well, that is ridiculous, isn't it? That should never, ever happen. Derek Hill in the number 22 car. And the other one is the Italian who's come into this series just for this one-off race. That's Gianluca Calzagni, and he's driving for the KJR Monaco team. And dear, oh dear, oh dear, now I can imagine some pretty hefty fines being handed out for that little incident, can't you?
That was like a motorway accident. You can see it unfolding for about 10 or 15 cars previously. They just all sort of stacked up and stacked up.
No real excuse for that, not when the yellows have been out.
It starts here.
Yeah, you can see the
cars slowing. Suddenly, lock up. Just not paying attention.
Absolutely, and it was the Italian really who caused that, because he veered across right in front of Derek Hill. So it was Gianluca Calzagni, but as you say, it had sort of begun before that, hadn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the yellow flags. You've got to be paying attention. It's there for a reason. You're putting not only the driver's life in danger, but the marshal's life in danger
Absolutely,
as well.
And there's no excuse for that. And particularly on a day like today, where the conditions are ideal, visibility perfect. I mean, I've often seen that happen when it's been wet and drivers can't see anything through the spray, but they certainly didn't have that excuse today. So they're still taking a little bit of time here to get Verano out of the car. We'll take the opportunity to take a quick commercial break. Welcome back to Formula 3000, coverage of the second round of the FIA International Championship here on Eurosport from Imola. In the sunshine, ideal conditions, Mark Webber leads behind the safety car at the moment, and we've had some 8 laps completed so far, and the reason they're behind the safety car is an accident to Gabriele Verano. And Verano went over the curb and hit the wall hard, car bits all over. He is out of the car now, I'm glad to say, has walked away from the accident, so he is okay. They're just clearing things up. 31 laps this race is due to run for, so we're at around quarter distance so far. And the main story of the race so far, great getaway from Mark Webber from pole position. A very poor getaway from the man who was second on the grid, number 17 car, Patrick Friesacher, the Red Bull car, he really didn't get away at all well, and therefore he finds himself down in 5th position. There is the clear-up operation, and there were 2 cars that got involved after the incident had happened down there. That's what you're seeing now, is the cars of Calzagni and Derek Hill that actually made contact with one another under yellow flag as they came around the corner. Various cars didn't seem to have slowed down enough, and the stacking up meant that the 2 of them ended up hitting each other and going off. So that was a little unfortunate, and the safety car still leads them around. Webber from Darren Manning is our top 2, with Thomas Enge 3rd, Pizzonia in 4th, Friesacher in 5th, Justin Wilson in 6th place, the championship leader, ahead of Sparafico, Gola, Mello, David Saelens, Piccini and Giorgio Pantano. Gareth, you reckon that David Saelens was one of the first there to sort of start that backing up operation?
Yeah, he was the one who caught my eyes. He seemed to arrive on the scene a bit too quick and had to brake very hard, which in turn meant that Piccini, who was quite close to him, had to brake very hard as well. And like I said before, it was like a motorway accident where all cars suddenly have to come to a quick halt or slow very rapidly. And at some point in that chain, someone's not going to quite manage it, and sure enough, they collided.
They collided and are out, sadly, yes. So that is disappointing for Derek Hill, particularly the American, son of the 1961 world champion Phil Hill, who is at Imola this weekend, and supporting his son's racing in the 3000 championship. But unfortunately, it's come to a sad end on this occasion. The rest of the field just making their way around, trying to keep a little bit of tyre temperature up as the safety car threads them through Acqua Minerale. Mark Webber and Darren Manning. It's an interesting little tussle in prospect between these 2. As we mentioned, they had the battle at Silverstone last year when Darren Manning led for a good part of that race, and Webber gradually closed up to him, seemed to have the car for the conditions, and managed to... they had a little bit of a wheel banging, didn't they, down eventually, and Webber got through and came through to take the victory. It was good hard racing. I don't think there was anything malicious about it.
No, I think they certainly were quite happy afterwards, both of them. There's no nasty words said. This is always an interesting situation in the pace car when a pace car comes in, because you can see on the restart who's sharp and who's alert and who's dozing, basically. Those who are sharp and alert will use this to capitalise and try and make up 1 or 2 spaces and look really sharp out the blocks. There's always 1 or 2 cars who get caught by surprise, don't see the safety car turn its lights off to indicate it's going in, have it in the wrong gear, whatever, and get caught with their pants down and lose a couple of places.
And of course, Mark Webber was penalised at the restart last time out in Brazil. Now, it won't happen here because he's in front, but what happened to him in Brazil was he was just fractionally ahead of the car he should have been behind as he went across the line at the restart. He timed it a fraction wrong, so he was just ahead by about a nose cone. And of course, you get penalised for that, don't you?
Yeah, you're not allowed to overtake until you actually cross the start-finish line to sort of start the next lap, if you like. If what Mark did was just get it just wrong, he got too much speed coming at the previous corner, got too much of a good run on the car in front, and just nosed ahead before they got to the line, and that was enough to get him his penalty. If he had just lifted off slightly, he would have lost that advantage, but he would have perhaps long-term been better off.
Yeah, well, of course, the 25 seconds that got added to his race time dropped him out of the points. He had finished 2nd on the road in Brazil, but because of the penalty he picked up for passing under, or before the green flag, effectively, that meant that he was dropped back to 7th place. No points for 7th, so Mark Webber coming into this 2nd race of the championship with no points in his score at all so far. Remember, it is Justin Wilson who is the points leader, Jamie Mello 2nd, Sébastien Bourdais. Now, we've seen Sébastien Bourdais out of this already.
I've seen, I think it's Justin Keen's car, twice has come into shot through Tosa there, smoking. When it comes up the hill, it looks okay, but when it comes into shot at Tosa, it's actually smoking. So whether he's got an oil leak or something.
Well, keep an eye on that. Justin Keen in one of the red cars towards the back of the field. British driver who got a very, very late deal to put together some 3000 this year. And doing a good job considering he hadn't done any testing. He's running in 16th place ahead of Bas Leinders, who's 17th at the moment. So he's doing okay. Let's hope that the car holds together for him. Webber and Manning, with Thomas Enge weaving around enthusiastically in the background. Of the people who scored well in Brazil, it's only Justin Wilson at the moment who's actually in a potential points finishing position, running in 6th. Jamie Mello, who was 2nd in Brazil, well, he's down in 9th place, so that's well outside the points. We know that Bourdais out of it. David Saelens, well, he's out of the points, down in 10th position. Joel Camatius is really struggling here this weekend. He's down in 20th. And the final point scorer in Brazil was Fabrizio Golan. Well, he's running in 8th place, so he might possibly, with a bit of luck, pick up a point or 2. but it looks like we're going to get a very different set of point scorers here in Imola to what we had in Brazil. Now, I think the safety car is staying out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
No lights off
That's
yet.
typical F3000, though, the fact there's different point scorers and different winners each race. It's such a tight series, and the cars are so close in performance. There rarely is somebody that sort of wins every race or gets a podium every race.
That's right. It's so competitive, so close. Last few champions, of course, all going on to some pretty impressive things. Last year's champion, Bruno Junqueira, who has moved over to Chip Ganassi Racing in the United States. Year before that, it was Nick Heidfeld, who's now doing good things at Sauber in Formula One, and the champion in 1998 was none other than Juan Pablo Montoya, who, of course, has gone on to very great things in his debut season in Grand Prix racing. Didn't qualify too well here at Imola, ended up 7th on the grid, didn't get his last run together, had problems in practice as well, which restricted his running, but Montoya certainly has impressed people after that Brazilian Grand Prix performance. The 1997 champion was Ricardo Zonta. Zonta's still testing in Formula One, and interestingly his name has been mentioned a couple of times recently with a chance of getting back into racing. There's no doubt he's a very talented driver, but just hasn't quite had the opportunities to prove that in Grand Prix racing as yet. And just looking back over the last 5 champions, Jörg Müller was the see what you mean. Yeah. Jörg Müller was the 1996 champion, and again, never to quite have the opportunities in Formula One.
No, he should have done. It was a shame, because Jörg was a very talented driver, very quick, and a nice relaxed approach to life as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So shame that he's certainly proved himself in sports car racing, and
he has. But someone with that ability deserves to be in top-line single-seaters, I think, in F1 Indy cars.
Well, just doesn't always work out, as you know for yourself, Gareth.
Indeed.
But talent is not always all it takes to be able to get up to the top echelon of Grand Prix racing. And of course, all these guys know that. They're all talented drivers, but even if you win consistently in 3000, still no guarantee, is it, to getting up to the top level?
Absolutely not. You still need everything else going in your favour. You need plenty of luck, plenty of money if you come the lights are off on the car.
So we will be getting a restart this time around, and Webber now will be concentrating on pacing this restart. 11 laps have been completed out of the 31. The safety car is about to head back into pit lane, and Mark Webber now has control of the pace of the restart. He's taking it very, very slowly as they come down towards the final chicane. Now he begins to pick up a little bit of pace. He's got Darren Manning right behind him, looking for any opportunity to sneak through. Good exit out of there. Important not to get too sideways onto the start-finish straight. But Mark Webber hasn't made a break, and Darren Manning will be looking for any opportunity here to have a run down into Tamburello. Will he get alongside Mark Webber? He doesn't try and get quite close enough. And as you mentioned there, Gareth, it's not a long braking distance into that first chicane. It doesn't give Manning the opportunity he needs.
No, you can see everyone behaved pretty well off the start there and got a good run. And like you said, it's so hard to overtake on that first part there. And I think everyone stayed in line pretty much, didn't they? There's nothing happened there at all.
No, that's right. Pizzonia in 4th place, just over the curb slightly. But Mark Webber made the restart work for him. And as he accelerates up out of Tosa and climbs this steep hill, he's opened up just a car length or two over Darren Manning. Still the smoke in the background there from Justin Keen's car, but no real major changes of position at this restart. Webber, Manning and Thomas Enge holding on to 3rd position. Down into Acqua Minerali. The second part here was where Webber had a spin in qualifying yesterday on a brand new set of tyres. No such problems this time. And it's good to see just that little bit of a heat haze coming. Good weather conditions, using the curb as he comes out of the Variante Alta and accelerating hard as they continue down the hill. Up to about 160 miles an hour before they get on the brakes for Rivazza. First part, fairly slow. But Gareth, you're building speed all the way through this left-hander, aren't you, the second part?
Yes, it's difficult actually, because it's quite bumpy. I don't know if you can see it very clearly on the screen, but there's 2 or 3 different types of tarmac. There's patches of tarmac there. It's a little bit bumpy. The grip's a bit sort of here and there. And also slightly off camber as well, so it's a hard corner. Whoops.
Someone's missing their rear wing.
Saelens?
And yes, it is. David Saelens, the Belgian, who we saw running well in 10th place, and he's just gone off.
Safe and assisted there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, otherwise, why would the rear wing have fallen off? Take a look. Here we go. Oh, that was in very dramatic stuff, wasn't it?
Mello?
I think that's Jamie Mello. Yep, they were battling over 9th position. And Jamie Mello, who finished 2nd in Brazil. So, for Justin Wilson's point of view, I suppose he might be quite relieved to see that, because in terms of the championship, very early days, of course, but Mello will not score here in Imola this time. Justin Wilson still holding on to 6th place, having a look at getting past Patrick Friesacher. Mark Webber just sliding a little bit, but so was Manning. No great difference in their exits out of Tosa. And David Saelens not having a good time of it at the moment, is he, Gareth? He should really be a potential front runner, but things not going his way.
He's a fast driver, there's no doubt about that. He just last year he was with a good team and put some good qualifying performances together, but just in the races, his luck or his brains deserted him because he often had an incident or two.
4th place finish in Brazil, so he did okay there, but needed to back that up with a good finish here today as well. The gap between the top 2 has remained at just under a second. No big changes amongst the front runners here at this point, and 13 laps have been completed now. We're just seeing there is David Saelens getting out of his car, and end of the day for him. So another front runner out of this race as Mark Webber continues to show them how to do it. Saelens having moved to the European Minardi team this year, owned by Paul Stoddart, who now is of course the owner of the Minardi Grand Prix team based, the 3000 team based at Ledbury in the UK. But no great success for Saelens. His teammates still going. Andrea Piccini, so he's now in 9th place. Pantano is up to 10th. Haberfeld is 11th, ahead of Scaraffico, Garcia. Justin Keane still going in 14th place. Now, what are we taking a look at here? Someone running a little bit wide out of the corner. That's Joel Tomatius, who was running quite a long way down anyway. He was in 18th place, and that's put him very firmly at the back of the field. Webber from Darren Manning. Now, can Manning look after his tyres and just try and find some little advantage as this race continues? Wilson also just onto the grass there as he came out of the Tosa hairpin. So far so good for the Supernova team leading this race. They had a disappointment in Brazil after that penalty was applied to Mark Webber, which meant that they didn't score any points. There is a team championship as well to play for, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes this year. Of course, Nordic in great shape after the first race with the victory for Justin Wilson. And no team's got more than one car into the top 6 there in Brazil, so the team's championship looking very much like the finishing order as it was at Interlagos. Thomas Enge in 3rd, Pizzonia 4th, Friesacher in 5th, and then Justin Wilson still holding on to that 6th place. Jonathan Palmer actually at Imola this weekend, supporting his man Justin Wilson. Of course, Justin won the first Formula Palmer Audi Championship in the UK, and that was what won him the opportunity to race in Formula 3000. And now with that opportunity to extend his championship lead here today. Even if he stays where he is, he would stay the championship leader, but it would all close up a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's no need for him to go mad and try and just overtake a car for an extra point. I mean, consistency is very important in 3000 because it is so close. So if he can just score a point today, that'll complement his 10 points from Brazil quite nicely. So he can be fairly happy with that. At the end of the season he will be anyway, I'm sure, even if he's not today.
That's right, and as you say, but the problem is, of course, that Mark Webber was a pre-season favourite before this championship got underway, and to see Mark winning just the 2nd round of the championship, that will make everyone else nervous, won't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it will do, because he is quick and he's probably in the best car, the best team, but even so, you know, it's a long way to go yet. Mistakes are made by drivers and teams, and I wouldn't put money on just yet.
No, absolutely. We're about half distance here in the 2nd round of the 3000 Championship, coming from Imola, supporting the San Marino Grand Prix. And of course, that's what all these boys want to do. They want to move up to Grand Prix racing. A number of them with great contacts. In fact, the top 2 that we're watching here, already established Formula 1 test drivers. Mark Webber test driving for the Benetton Renault team, and behind him Darren Manning, test driver for the BAR Honda team. And BAR Honda seem to have a number of test drivers on their books this year, but Darren is one of them, and it's those contacts which are so crucial. There is the other British driver, Justin Keane, and as we mentioned earlier, smoking away, but Gareth, it doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all, does it?
Not at the moment. If he's burning oil off, then eventually it will make a difference, but at the moment it's not having an effect.
So he continues, and hoping that it will hold out for him for the remainder of the race. Still only half distance, as I mentioned, completed here. So quite a long way to go around this 3-mile track in front of the Italian fans, the Italian tifosi, who were a little disappointed to see Michael Schumacher pushed back to 4th place on the grid for the start of tomorrow's Grand Prix, ending his sequence of pole positions, and 6th place for Rubens Barrichello. So not a great day for the tifosi so far. And I have to say, they haven't really got an Italian to cheer about much in this race at this point. Fabrizio Golan is the top Italian, but he's down in 8th place. So tifosi having a quiet time at Imola.
They've actually had a quiet time regarding drivers for quite some while, haven't they? Fisichella's their only close thing to a top-line driver, and this year the Benetton's nowhere, so they've never had
Trulli, I suppose.
Well, yeah, sorry, yeah, Trulli, I suppose, but even he's not sort of what I would consider top line. They haven't had someone in the top car for quite some time now. You know, a Ferrari, a McLaren, a Williams.
That's right.
So they always rely on Ferrari to be their standard holders, the car to support the team rather than an individual driver.
It seems strange, doesn't it? Because a few years ago, it seemed Formula One seemed to be largely made up of Italian drivers, didn't it? There was a period where it seemed to be a lot of Italian drivers.
Capellis, Lorinis, and so on. Yeah. Oops.
Look at this, Justin Wilson coming under some severe pressure there from Rodrigo Sparaffico and from Fabrizio Golan as well. So good battle going on. And Wilson just about managing to defend. I wonder if he made a mistake somewhere that allowed them to get so close.
He must have done, yeah, because he was quite comfortably behind Friesacher before, wasn't he? He's dropped right back.
Crucial stuff this for Wilson. He cannot afford to lose a place. A valuable point on offer here if he can stay in 6th. And yes, he really has dropped back, hasn't he, from the back of Friesacher's car. The gap between them had been just half a second, but you can see for yourself now it's several seconds.
I would guess that he probably had a go at him, tried to overtake him, and got rebuffed and lost momentum and dropped back into the hands of these two.
So now he's got some work to do. He's got clear space in front of him, so he ought to be able to pull away gradually. But once those guys behind have scented perhaps a little bit of fallibility there, they'll be hunting him down for the next few laps. 17 laps completed out of 31. Mark Webber, our race leader, from Darren Manning, Thomas Enge, Antonio Pizzonia, Patrick Friesacher, and this man, Justin Wilson. Then it's Sparaffico, Golan, Andrea Piccini, Giorgio Pantano, Mario Haberfeld in 11th, and Riccardo Sparaffico in 12th position. Behind them, Antonio Garcia, Justin Keane, Bas Leinders, Victor Maslov, Nicholas Filiberti, and Gabriele Lancieri in 18th position. And Wilson just about holding on to that 6th place. Back down under the bridge into Rivazza and trying to get away. The gap went up to 3.3 seconds between Friesacher and Wilson, having been just half a second. And as you say, he may well have put in an attempt to get past. We never saw that, but whatever it was, brought Wilson back into the clutches of Sparaffico. He has managed to just pull it away again. We're back with the race leader, Mark Webber. The blue and yellow colours, the obvious association with Benetton Renault in the colour scheme of this car as well. The Arden Team Russia entry of Darren Manning close behind him, Christian Horner's team. This is a team, Gareth, that really has made progress over the last couple of years. The team running Darren Manning in 2nd place.
Yeah, I think their first year was 97, 98. I think it was my last year. And they came on the scene with obviously a good, healthy budget from the Russian oil company, Lukoil. And Maslov came as part of the package. But they've always tried to have the first driver is their main driver. Maslov is the second driver in there because he's paying the bills. Although he has improved over sort of 2 or 3 years. I mean, he never used to qualify initially. I think today he qualified 17th, didn't he? So he's got better and better, but he's never going to be a top-line driver. But their first driver has been the one that generally has flown the flag, if you like.
Yes, and Darren Manning seems to be doing that well as he's entered his 2nd year in 3000 this year. Had a 2nd place finish at Silverstone, as we mentioned last year. That is his best to date. Fastest lap there for race leader Mark Webber, so he's looking confident out front. But coming back to Darren Manning, if he can get his championship back on course here this weekend with the 2nd place, that really would be good news for him. Lives in Northamptonshire these days as he keeps his base close to the Formula One teams. Of course, many Formula One teams based in that sort of area, that sort of Oxfordshire area, Northamptonshire up near Silverstone, and Darren doing his best to maintain the contacts. Test driver for BAR Honda, comes from a background of karting, Formula First, Formula Vauxhall Junior, the Formula Vauxhall Championships, and then Formula 3 in the UK, and has had a lot of success, funnily enough, at the all-important British Grand Prix support race in F3 in the past. He's won that several times, which is pretty impressive. And then he went on to win the Japanese Formula 3 title in 1999, and also won Macau and the Korean race that year, which was good news for him. Very prestigious races, beating Jenson Button on both occasions.
He's got a good CV. I mean, he deserves to be making progress in the sport. He's never had great finance behind him, although he's got a good safe seat with Arden, but it's not money he's had to find, which is a luxury. But he deserves to go far. He's got a lot of talent.
That's right. So let's hope that he can continue to build on what's looking like a good performance here today. We're looking at Giorgio Pantano, another driver highly rated by many experienced observers of the sport after his performances in karting and then in Formula 3. But it is... Watching Pantano make a big mistake there at Acqua Minerale.
Chance for Piccini to capitalise on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Defending strongly.
Well, he's got every right to stay to the inside there, has Pantano, but he's got to get through the chicane safely, and he's a bit wide there, and Piccini getting alongside, almost pushed onto the grass, but they're side by side. This should give Piccini the inside. He almost pushes Pantano onto the grass, and Haberfeld's gone through.
It was,
Piccini's locked up, he's gone wide. That's given Haberfeld a chance. He doesn't quite make it, but Piccini getting well overexcited there as he finally made the move on Pantano.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was good fun, wasn't it?
Started with Pantano just running wide at Acqua Minerale. It's easily done because you arrive downhill very quick and you've got to slow the car very rapidly.
Oh, he's got sideways there too.
And he just ran wide, and Piccini took the opportunity.
He did, and Piccini then nearly did almost the same thing, didn't he, at Ravazza?
Yes.
He got away with it, and now that's got both of them moved up. So after 20 laps have been completed now, our top six...
Justin Keen on the move?
Still the same. Oh, yeah, Justin Keen making a move on Antonio Garcia. Good effort that from Justin Keen, man who finished runner-up in the... and then, look, Garcia's run wide, coming out of the chicane, and he gets past again. So, as well as Justin Keen, Bas Leinders has gone past. So now we're seeing a bit of overtaking.
It's all happening.
And most of it, like you said, Gareth, you said, as we went through this race, we would see people making mistakes. Exactly what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it probably happened... Oh, here we go, there's a repeat of... as they come out of... this is where Piccini tries to put Pantano on the grass. Here we go, a little lunge towards him.
Yeah.
The reminder is there.
But then watch this, look, watch Piccini. He really locks up down here, doesn't he?
Yeah, just going in too quick. Got a bit excited with all the action.
Haberfeld had to defend from Pantano. That's Riccardo Sparaffica, who's in the battle too, in the green, blue and yellow car. And now they seem to have got themselves sorted out a little bit, but Haberfeld hunting around there to get past Piccini, and I think it's well worth applying pressure. Piccini shows himself to be a little bit erratic under pressure.
That's right. And Pantano will be annoyed because he was stuck behind Piccini for a long time. Obviously managed to get past, and then made a silly mistake, and he's dropped 2 places now, back behind Piccini again, and we're all stuck in this train behind him again.
Well, that's what racing at this level is about, isn't it, Gareth? You've got to maintain the concentration for longer than in Formula 3, which is what Pantano's been doing before.
Which is what I was going to say earlier on before we got cut off. We were saying about how races now are too short. I mean, they're over after about 55 minutes. And if you consider a Formula 1 race is normally almost 2 hours, and this Formula is supposed to be getting drivers ready for Formula 1, I think they shouldn't have shortened the races. The races should be in the region of an hour and 15 long to get the driver accustomed. You know, a Formula 3 race, which is one level below this, can be anything between 25 minutes and 45 minutes. And I think the next logical step up is to have a race in 3000 of about an hour and 15, and then F1, hour and 52 hours. So I think it's a mistake to shorten these races down, because the drivers aren't getting accustomed to pacing themselves for that race distance.
That's right, and potential for mistakes perhaps a little less than it was with the longer distance races.
Yeah.
Piccini still holding off that little, well, quite a big gaggle of cars it is now. Piccini holding on to 9th ahead of Haberfeld in 10th, but Mark Webber is our race leader, as he has been from the start of this second round of the championship. Back to round 2 of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship from Imola, and our coverage here on British Eurosport continues with Mark Webber out in front and having pulled away a little bit now from Darren Manning. The gap just over 2 seconds between these two, and that's the biggest we've seen it throughout. There's less than 9 laps to complete now, and Webber seems to have just really got into his rhythm and gradually is pulling away.
Yeah, all 3 are now flying. Yeah, it's getting a good push on towards the end, but all 3 have pulled away, haven't they? The front 3 have pulled away quite a lot. They're actually 3 or 4 seconds ahead of the 4th place car now.
So a bit of a demonstration drive. So from Mark Webber. That was a funny angle coming out of Tosa, wasn't it?
The power a bit too hard too soon, I think.
So he's got to still behave himself with 8 laps remaining here. And we look through the rest of the order. Pizzonia still ahead of Friesacher. Justin Wilson's got himself away from the clutches of Sparaffico. And then here's that other group again. Piccini in the back car ahead of Mario Haberfeld, the Brazilian. And then Pantano. We saw these guys fighting over position a few moments ago. They seem to have settled down again, but we're still not convinced that Piccini's going to behave himself. Now, just taking, I think this is a view of Garcia going off a few moments ago. He'd take a little wild run through the gravel. Yes, indeed, Antonio Garcia. He did keep it out of the wall, but only just. Importantly. And back onto the circuit, and the reigning Open Formula Nissan champion moved up to 3,000 this year. Certainly been outpaced by his teammate this weekend, Patrick Friesacher, who was so impressively second fastest after qualifying, but now runs in 5th. So he's got to learn how to get one of these things off the line effectively. He didn't do that very well today, but we'll give him that one. It's only his second start in Formula 3000, and he was up against some very experienced runners at the front of the grid. So Webber through the Tamburello chicane, cleanly, smoothly, using the curb just a bit, but trying not to run a wheel onto the grass. Then onto the brakes. 3rd gear through the Villeneuve chicane. We've got a different camera angle here. Oh, we're looking at somebody's front wing, aren't we? Yes, and I don't know who that was, or supposed to belong to. That was out of the final corner, leading on to start-finish. New fastest lap for Justin Wilson. That's interesting. So the Brit is flying now.
Yeah, he's got that fresh air, hasn't he, between him and Friesacher, so he's pulling away from the Brazilians and catching Friesacher.
So the car running well in this second part. Gareth, how much... Well, let's just take a look at what we saw. This might have been where the front wing came from. Well, that was Riccardo Sparaffico being hit by Justin Keane, yeah. So Sparaffico into the gravel. That's at Rivazza. Did Keane get away with it? He may well have done, unless the front wing then came off. Let's take a look.
Oh, no.
This is another piece of contact. Keane getting hit by... Didn't quite see who that was, who was right behind him at that point. I think it was Filiberti, actually. I think it was Nicholas Filiberti who gave him a bit of a clout.
Right, too late, didn't it? Simple as that.
Yeah, number 11, Nicholas Filiberti. And that's removed his front wing, but it has dropped Justin a bit down the order. And that's what happens when you try and go just as fast without a front wing. Doesn't work too well, does it?
No, you've got to brake early if you've got a front wing on.
Lack of downforce on the front grip. Lack of front grip. And I don't think he quite allowed enough for that. Look at that. A very graphic demonstration of how a front wing helps you go around the corner, and lack of a front wing doesn't.
Exactly, yeah. I think he was actually trying to race the guys around him, who obviously had front wings and had an advantage.
Well, he's learned that one fairly quickly. Still in the race, but only just. Here is our race leader, Mark Webber, from Darren Manning and Thomas Enge. As Pizzonia, Friesacher and Wilson. Oh, and we've got Piccini. Piccini, who was in front of that gaggle of cars, who was running 9th. Now, let's see what happened here. Did he get a bit of help? No, he didn't. Whoa, oh, and he's taken Haberfeld with him. Oh, that is so unlucky for Mario Haberfeld. That was purely Piccini's fault, and he's taken Mario Haberfeld with him. Haberfeld just never seems to get any luck in this championship, does he? Whatever he does, it doesn't work out for him. And the man who won the British Formula 3 title some 3 years ago now, he's out of the race. And thank you very much, Andrea Piccini. So that means up into 9th place now has become Giorgio Pantano. He says thank you. He's back where he was a little while ago before he made his mistake.
See if you can keep that this time.
That's right. There's Haberfeld's teammate, Mark Webber. 2.1 seconds his advantage last time around. And then the gap between Manning and Enge, just over a second. And then to Pizzonia, another 3.5 seconds. Pizzonia himself has just a narrow advantage over Friesacher. There it is. That's one of the closest battles on track at the moment between Pizzonia 4th and Friesacher 5th. Mark Webber just cruising pretty much at the moment, but he has to maintain the concentration because Darren Manning will be all too eager to pick up the pieces if he makes a mistake. There's Pizzonia, there's Friesacher right behind him, and Justin Wilson has definitely caught up again.
Yeah, that's Pantano again.
No, now that wasn't how you're supposed to do it. He jumped over the curves. Dear oh dear. I have to say that he's not been terribly impressive once he's managed to get on his own. He keeps making mistakes, doesn't he?
He's pushing too hard, I think. You know, he's obviously trying to get that gap closed to the car in front because he thinks he's quicker. He is quicker. He's quicker than Piccini. Piccini was holding him up. Now he's cleared that problem of Piccini. he doesn't seem to be able to just get into a rhythm of putting consistent times in. He's trying to do it all in one lap. And it doesn't work that way. And someone of his experience, who's been in karting for as long as he has and won World Championship, should know better.
Mark Webber lapping some slower traffic at this point and getting through cleanly, no problem for him at all. 26 laps completed now, and that leaves just 5 laps for Webber to take what would be his second Formula 3000 victory, the first of this season, a season in which he is very much lining himself up to try and take the title. Plenty of good background, of course, in Mark Webber's career. Starting out in Formula Ford, drove for the Works Van Diemen team in the UK, finished second in the actual British Championship in 1996 to Christian Colby, but he went on to win the Formula Ford Festival, that all-important big meeting at Brands Hatch at the end of the season. He won the Euro Series as well. He raced in the Formula 3 Championship in 1997 and then got picked up by Mercedes, but in spite of some great experience gained at Mercedes, it was a bit of a horrible time when he ended up flipping at Le Mans in the 1999 event, before Mercedes withdrew from that event entirely, and had a bit of a quiet time throughout the rest of 99, but then came back strongly last year in Formula 3000 with the European Arrows team, took 3rd place overall in the championship, and that one win at Silverstone, which really got him back on top in terms of people talking about him as a potential Formula 1 star. And here he is now with the top team, with Supernova, and so far so good, putting it all together well here at Imola with a 2.8 second lead now over Darren Manning. Very professional approach, doesn't he, Gareth, as well to his motor racing, not just in the car, but when you talk to him, he's always very professional about the way he goes motor racing.
I don't know him that well. I knew him back in sort of 97 when he was in Formula 3, because he drove for Alan Dockin Racing in Formula 3, the same team I drove for when I was in F3. So I know him through that, but I don't know him that well, but certainly has a good reputation for being professional and well prepared.
And trying to become another Australian to make it into Formula 1. It's been a little while now. David Brabham, of course, made it, but never had a great opportunity. Brabham, a very talented driver, but really was always in slower teams towards the tail of the field, and therefore couldn't establish his reputation. Webber has got the right contacts, there's no doubt about that, but of course, as we said before, it depends on a little bit of luck and timing as much as anything. He's test driver for Benetton Renault, and you know, Benetton Renault, they're going through a bit of a tough time at the moment, but Fisichella's contract comes to an end at the end of this season, so Webber wants to be in the right place at the right time to perhaps pick up a drive, but who knows what will happen at the moment. Fisichella's doing a good job for the team. If they keep him in the team and Button stays there, then of course the opportunities dry up, and Mark Webber may then struggle to find that opportunity he needs. So we are into the closing stages of this second round of the series, the Formula 3000s from Imola, the championship that provides Grand Prix stars of the future. Not the only championship that does that, but certainly has played a very important part for a number of drivers that have made it up to Grand Prix racing. And look at this, what is going on here? Justin Wilson really having a go at getting past Patrick Friesacher and nearly doing it.
Yeah, well, he's in the position now that he got punished for earlier on. He's now taking advantage of Friesacher hassling Pizzonia. I think Friesacher had a go at Pizzonia, got balked, lost momentum, and then Justin took advantage of that, which is what Justin got hurt by earlier on.
So Justin, who has been the fastest man on the track in recent laps, now looking to put in a challenge here to Friesacher, and of course knowing that Friesacher is inexperienced in these cars, if he can harry him, if he can worry him into a mistake, he's more likely, like we've seen someone like Pantano make a mistake. I would have thought that Friesacher had to be a potential for making a mistake, but so far I have to say, doing a good job. I haven't really seen him put a wheel wrong.
No, he faded a bit mid-race, but the last 5 laps he's come back really strongly and has been all over Pizzonia. And I think of the three, the speed-wise, in reverse order, I think Justin's quickest of the three, then Friesacher, and then Pizzonia.
Yeah, well, we haven't got an Austrian in Formula 1 driving at the moment. Alexander Wirtz still he's back into test driving role now at McLaren Mercedes. So Friesacher might find himself a bit of support. He's got good backing there from Red Bull, of course, which is a very important sponsor both in 3000 and in Formula 1. So if he carries on like this, he may well open a few doors for himself, but wants to hold on to that 5th place ahead of Justin Wilson. Just a couple of laps to go, and Mark Webber comes back with the fastest lap on lap number 29, 1 minute 40.232, so still showing that he has the pace as the fuel load lightens just a little bit more.
He's obviously comfortable because, I mean, this stage of the race, with 2 laps left, he doesn't need to push. He's way ahead, really, in 3,000 terms, and he's no need to be on it that much. So if he can pop a quick lap in that close to the end, he's obviously quite comfortable.
I have to say, Thomas Enge is looking pretty strong as well at the moment. Victor Maslov, you're looking at here, further down the field. That's teammate to Darren Manning. And Maslov is running in a pretty good 10th place. That's one of his best performances so far, I would say.
He's got Pantano right behind him, so let's see what happens next.
Yeah, of course, Pantano went off, and that allowed Maslov to go through. There's no doubt that the yellow car is faster, but still has to do it. Still has to find a way of getting alongside and then overtaking Victor Maslov. And Maslov, a real star in Russia. He might not be the pace setter in Formula 3000, but he's the best that Russia has, and he's become a bit of a national celebrity over there. And both he and Darren Manning were in Moscow last week, I believe it was, doing some promotional work for the team and for the sponsors. And they have quite a high recognition factor out there. And I have to say, good performance this time from Victor Maslov, who has learnt, really before he came into 3000, he'd had very, very little racing experience, and certainly nothing at top international level. So he's had to work hard. It's not easy coming into this level.
He has done well.
Yeah.
When he first arrived, like I said before, he was spinning and not qualifying and crashing, but he's got that out of his system, and he's learnt very well.
On to the last lap then for race leader Mark Webber, and the gap 3.2 seconds as they came across the line last time. So barring disaster, this is a victory in the making for the Australian. Britain's Darren Manning has driven well, moved up into second at the start of the race after qualifying third, and helped by a rather poor start from Patrick Friesacher. Manning put the pressure on Webber in the early stages. There was no doubt at that time that it looked as though Manning might have had the slightly faster car, but as the race has progressed, the setup for Supernova has worked perhaps that little better than for Manning. So Manning's dropped away a touch, has come under a little bit of pressure now from Thomas Enge. Enge less than a second behind as we went on to that last lap. So Manning will have to keep an eye on his mirrors and defend second rather than chase the lead. For Mark Webber, it's all should be plain sailing from this point. He can just coax it home. Let's look in the background. Well, Manning's clear enough there of Thomas Enge not to have to look in his mirrors too much. Just has to drive a good clean lap to finish the last few corners off, and it looks as though Australia's Mark Webber is going to come through and take victory in round 2 of the International Formula 3000 Championship. A beautifully driven race, beautifully judged weekend. The whole weekend has been perfect from Webber, fastest in both qualifying sessions, a dominant victory on race day. He comes through to take the win ahead of Darren Manning, Thomas Enge in third, 4th place for Pizzonia, 5th for Friesacher, 6th for Justin Wilson, who will retain the championship lead by 1 point after today. Rodrigo Sparafico takes 7th, 8th place for Fabrizio Golan, 9th for Bas Leinders, and 10th for Victor Maslov. But delight for this man, for Mark Webber. Here come the remaining runners. Something going on there across the line. That was Maslov just ahead of Pantano. And then the others coming through. Justin Keane getting to the finish. Good job from him with that smoky-looking car. Lancieri 13th. Ricardo Sparafico 14th ahead of Camatius Garcia and Filiberti. Those are our finishers, 17 finishers today. And the results, spin there for Thomas Enge, a bit like in, what's the matter with these Nordic boys? Every time these Nordic racing drivers get a good result, they seem to have a spin on the slowing down laps. Must be something in the water there, you know. But nonetheless, good day for Nordic racing. They've got both their cars in the points, and that's certainly going to be good news for Nordic in the Teams Championship. That's going to give them a healthy little lead over the likes of Supernova and Durango. But today has belonged to Mark Webber. And there are the figures. The race length, 56 minutes, 45.779 seconds. And, well, he really wasn't troubled at all, was he, Gareth?
No, he was very impressive drive, actually. And the only time he looked slightly under pressure was the first 3 or 4 laps, and also again after the pace car went in during the stoppage, where Darren Manning put pressure on him. But other than that, he looked very comfortable and well-deserved win.
Well, Darren Manning's moved up into 4th, or joint 3rd, if you want to put it that way, in the championship as a result of his 2nd place finish here. Justin Wilson with a 1-point lead over this man, Mark Webber. So Justin held on for that 6th place. He'll be a little frustrated, I'm sure he felt. He was a lot quicker than Patrick Friesacher, but there was no way past. Not the easiest track on which to overtake. Mark Webber took advantage of his pole position here today, made no mistakes under pressure. That's the way to go about winning motor races, and the smile tells it all now. As he clambers out of the car, Darren Manning just in the background, you can see him out of his car, and a good day's work for him. And the boys at Supernova can be delighted. His engineer Andy Roach working well with Mark today to provide a car that seemed to get better and better as the race progressed. That was the moment of victory for Mark Webber, and that was the time to start enjoying life today. Thomas Enge getting 3rd, Darren Manning there just shaking him by the hand. There's Darren looking pretty happy with himself.
No, well, rightly so. I mean, gets his season off the mark with a good 2nd place, 6 points. So he's 2nd or 3rd in the title series now, 3rd or 4th, something like that.
Yeah, he's delighted with that, and that is exactly what he needs, as you say, to get things going. Thomas Enge looks pretty happy too, and Thomas, who, of course, if he hadn't passed Jamie Mello under that yellow in Brazil and been penalised, then he would be in a very good position at this time.
Would it be 2nd and 3rd place? He'd be up there, wouldn't he?
He would, so he just has to remember that one for the future. There, the results then. Top 6 scoring, same scoring system as in Formula 1, 10 points to the winner, 6 to 2nd, and on through down the list to 1 point for 6th place, and the others all failing to score. Entertainment provided by Giorgio Pantano today. No doubt he was fast, but one or two too many mistakes. But I think we'll see more from him later on during the year. I'm sure we'll see some good performances from the young Italian. Mark Webber's car sitting down there in Parc Fermé, and well, the car's work is done, and Saturday afternoon sees the Formula 3000 race take place at the Grand Prix, and of course they support a good many of the European Grand Prix as we go through the rest of the season. The next race will be in support of the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's just take a look back over some of the action. The start was crucial. A great getaway for Mark Webber. Manning got put on the grass, but it didn't make him back off at all. And although Manning was he could almost have ended up 4th there, you know. It was a good aggressive move through the first chicane, really, that got Manning into that 2nd place. We saw this incident when we were already under yellow, and 2 cars took each other off. Verana had already gone off, but then Hill and Calzagni took each other off under safety car caution, which was bad news for them. We saw Piccini in the battle with Pantano for 9th, 10th places. And they had some fun and games later on in the race. Antonio Garcia himself there in the Red Bull car went off through the gravel. But glad to say not too many damaged cars at the end of today's event. Just looking back at some of the pictures, some of the action from this 2nd round of the series. This was the moment that Piccini and Pantano came wheel to wheel, and almost on the grass both sides at one time. Piccini then locking up, but managing to stay in front as Haberfeld had already got past Pantano. And then we saw the spin for Antonio Garcia. He had a bit of an exciting time today, various points throughout the race. He was off the road. And this was the other view of him going off a little bit later on. And still he managed to rejoin the fray, ended up finishing in 16th position. And this was when Filiberti ran into the back of Justin Keane and then tried to take the next corner at undiminished speed and found that it was a little difficult without a front wing. Well, he did finish, but down in 17th place, and this was the moment that Piccini took himself and Mario Haberfeld off, the 2 of them spearing off the circuit. And I don't think Piccini is going to be getting many Christmas cards from Mario Haberfeld after that one. Pantano pushing too hard after finding himself into some clear space, but he did manage to keep it going. And the podium ceremony is now taking place. So Mark Webber on that top step of the podium, celebrating victory here at Imola. Darren Manning on the far side, Thomas Enge nearest us, and a rather magnificent trophy for Mark to celebrate his first win of this season, his second win overall.
And to the second place driver, Darren Manning, the trophy again presented by Mr. Stefano Valli, and also to the third.
Great drive today from Darren Manning, making up for the disappointment of Brazil when he spun out of a possible points finish just towards the end of the race, pushing a little too hard. And Thomas Enge from the Czech Republic taking the trophy for third, and for Nordic Racing scoring some more very valuable points. And now it's time for the champagne battle. Mark Webber, a delighted winner here at Imola. So that's the end of round 2 of the championship, a championship that is now still led by Justin Wilson. You'll be able to see highlights of the Formula 3000 race tonight at 1:45 Central European time, 11:45 if you're watching in British Eurosport. Now watch out for the Super Racing weekend getting underway here on British Eurosport tomorrow, 4:30 if you're watching on British Eurosport, and 12:30 on Monday. Some great racing in prospect from the GTs, the touring cars, and the production touring cars from Brno in the Czech Republic. It's an exciting racetrack, and we're looking forward to some good racing on our second Super Race weekend. The next race in the Formula 3000s will be Barcelona in 2 weeks' time, before they then move on to the A1 ring, Monaco, the Nürburgring, and Manicourt, and most of the other European circuits supporting the European Grand Prix. So this has been the second round of the championship. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage here on Eurosport. We will be with you live for all the qualifying sessions and the races throughout the rest of the season. From Ben Edwards and Gareth Rees, we look forward to seeing you again for Formula 3000 and all the motorsports on Eurosport. See you again soon. Bye-bye for now.